Guys, today I'm going to show you how to separate and correct images for the OMNI sublimation files that will eventually get composited and put together with a 3D model, and they'll actually appear on 3D form in LiquidPixel. The attached to this video on YouTube at the bottom, there should also be a couple of links. The first one is a PDF file. It's just basically directions going through the same steps in the video here, just to give you a little bit of a printed copy or something that you can refer back to, or if you need any extra help or questions. The second thing is actually a Photoshop action file, and it just basically covers the last few steps of the process. You can install that in Photoshop and just run it when we get to that point, and it takes care of probably 10 different steps there. It just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. I'll show you how to do it without the action file in case you want to know, but just, that'll save you a little bit of time. So let's get started here. The first thing you're going to need is a texture file. It looks pretty much like this, and basically there's a different texture file for each style of garment in LiquidPixel. I believe Pixnetic set these up, and basically they're in specific locations. This is called an image map. It's in specific locations so that the front gets laid on the front of the 3D body and the back gets laid on the back, and so on and so forth. So you need this in order to figure out exactly where to place your images. And the second thing is the actual Illustrator Art. Excuse me. It might look a little bit different here, but for each one. But this is the Illustrator Art that I'm going to be using today. And it's just the OMNI art. Sometimes there might be more than one size here. I think this is just all one size, the adult. But you're going to need something to that effect in Illustrator that we can resize and get down to what we need. So the first thing we want to do is to open Illustrator and create a new file. We want it in CMYK, and it's got to be 2048 pixels by 2048 pixels. So it's a square. That size is the exact same size as the texture image that I showed you earlier. Oh, by the way, the texture image, I didn't even tell you where to find it. Texture image you can actually find on the LiquidPixel server in the art folder under OC sub and designs. There should be one there for each style of garment. So any of this, if you're fixing a piece of art, you probably want to get the one with the same artwork. If you are starting something new, it probably doesn't matter as long as you have the locations in that texture file. So let's create this new file, and there it is. The first thing we're going to want to do is place this texture file down and just make sure it's centered and square up to exactly where we need to go. Now we're just going to use this as a reference, so I'm just going to lock it so that I'm not going to move it because I need everything to be in the exact same spot. So for right now, we're actually just going to let that go for a second, and we're going to open up this artwork. Okay, so the first thing we're really going to want to do is to clean up this art a little bit because there's a lot of stuff here that we don't need. And if you open this up, you can see there's just a lot of stuff here, and most of it we don't actually need. So you can delete things we don't need. Let's see. First of all, the titles and any headers, any sizing information or like part information, color boxes that are down here, all of that can go. You can see here there's artboards under each of these pieces, and we can actually get rid of those. This is the artboard panel. I'm just going to delete all the extra artboards. So now we've got one artboard. Now over here in my layers palette, you can actually see there's a lot of text. We don't need any of that. I know there's a lot of stuff here we can actually delete. Now, granted, you don't want to delete anything that you might, that's actually part of the artwork or the sublimation art, so just keep that in mind. I believe all of these are, yep, they're just lines. that go on the outside. Let's see, so we can delete that. I believe this is the actual back, so we want to keep that. Same thing here. That's good, that's good. And I'm really just going through here and just taking out anything we don't need. There's nothing in that clipping path, so we don't need that. These again are just lines. And okay, so this is the logo. I'm just going to rename that so I don't forget what that is. Okay, so I think at this point we've got it pretty much down to our basics. Just the artwork and nothing extra that we don't need. To clean this up just a little further, I'm going to go through and I'm going to group these. So I'm just selecting them, hitting Control G to group, just so that I have as few kind of objects to deal with as possible. So that's a lot cleaner and a lot easier to manage. Because I'm going to be cutting and resizing these into the other document, so the less things you have to worry, less pieces you have to worry about, the better. So now that this is pretty much cleaned up, I want to make sure that these are all spot colors, because when we're going to put this file into Photoshop, and it's going to have to figure out where all the colors are. And the easiest way for it to do that is to break these down into spot colors. So I'm going to just drag my mouse across and select everything and go up here into this separations preview. And if you can't see that, you can just go to Window, Separations Preview, and that will pop up. And this is great. It's a great tool. I use it all the time. If you click this Overprint Preview, now your window looks a little bit different, but it's actually showing you the exact colors that are in the document, which is great. If you click off the CMYK, you see that nothing's really changed, which is really good actually. It means that there's no CMYK colors in what's left here. So everything is omnichire black, and if you can actually uncheck that and see what's black, and omnichire yellow and see what's in yellow. But the biggest problem is here is in the design there's also white, and we need to make sure that that white is represented over here in some way so that we can recolor it when we get into LiquidPixel. So the easiest way to do that is, again, select everything and use the Recolor Artwork panel. There's usually a button right up here at the top. It looks like a little color wheel, grayscale color wheel. Or you can go to I believe Edit Colors, and Recolor Artwork. Now it's going to bring up this window, and this, again, like the separations preview, shows you the colors in your document, and you see that black and white are there, but there's no color here that you can change it to, and that's because Illustrator automatically preserves black and white so that you can't edit it. So what you want to do to fix that is this little color reduction option box. Click that, and you can see right here, preserve white and black are both checked. So if you uncheck those, click OK. Now it does something very strange here because it thinks you're trying to put all of those colors into one. So we don't want to do that, so hit cancel, and then reopen that same panel. And now it looks a lot different. You can see that you can change the black to a different color and change the white to a different color. Now, what we want to do is just make these into spot colors. So you can double click on them and click on your color swatches, and it lists all your color swatches in the document here. You can just kind of confirm that that's all yellow. This is all black. And I'm going to click on the white, and I'm actually going to change that. Let's change that to omnichire navy. Okay, so, and you can see in your document there, it changed the white to navy, and it does everything. You don't have to go into individual pieces and do that. It does it across the board, and it's actually a really great tool. So just click OK. Everything looks good. Everything looks like it's been recolored properly, and up here you can kind of see, and you can click on these to double check that all of your stuff is in fact in spot colors. Okay, so what we're going to do next is to copy these into the other document and position them correctly. You can do this one piece at a time. I'm going to grab all of them, I think, and I'm going to go to my other document here and just paste them in. Okay, and as you can see, they're really large. That's because we're using actual pattern pieces here, and this image is much, much smaller. So basically the next process is a little bit of trial and error. What you really want to do is to just resize these and position them so they're the exact same size and position as this document here. There's a couple of different ways you do that. You can just, play with them a little bit until you get them to where you are. Sometimes I'll even change the opacity so I can see the underlying image. Now, I know as graphic designers, we're all trained not to always stretch proportionally. Some of these images may not fit if you stretch them proportionally, and that's okay. Because these bodies are getting wrapped around a 3D form, they may not match up with our patterns exactly, but they should be pretty close. I mean, maybe a few pixels off, but overall they should be very close. And just make sure, whatever you do, that if you use the opacity, change it back to 100 when you're done. And like I said, I'm going to go through and just make these all the same size. And the reason we're doing this is because the image map actually is how LiquidPixel finds the art in order to place it. So if it's not in the same spot as it was before, it won't know where to go look for it. It knows that this area here is the front body piece, and that's where it goes to look for the front body piece. Again, make sure your opacity is back at 100. All right, we got 2 down. And I'm just going to continue working through. Sometimes I just feel like it's easier to do length than width, and you get pretty close like on the first try, like that's pretty good. And sometimes the sleeves look very similar, so just make sure that you're putting the right sleeve in the right spot and the left sleeve in the left spot. It's also tricky because our image underneath is using that white that we fixed, so just make sure that you're lining it up with the edge there and not the actual color underneath. And hopefully we can get this in pretty quick here. Okay, actually that looks pretty good. Yep, see, make sure that everything's 100%. In fact, I'm just gonna make sure, yep, everything's 100%. We're good. All right, there's also this box here, and I'm not sure if it has a purpose, but I'm gonna make sure to include that in. I'm gonna make that a separate color just so that it's its own thing. I may have to actually create a new spot color here. Well, here I can use one from my color library that I actually have stored over here. Okay, so now if we go into our overprint preview, you can see, turn the CMYK off, and I've got the 4 colors. So I have the 3 colors from the original document in this box, which is a 4th color. All right, so our next step is kind of strange. I know we've already recolored this once, but we're actually going to recolor this into 100% CMYK values because we're going to export this into Photoshop, and what's going to happen is Photoshop doesn't recognize spot colors. It only recognizes CMYK or RGB. So if we transfer this over right now, it's going to interpret, let's say, OMNI navy as an RGB or a CMYK value, and we don't want it to do that. We want it to be as close as to one specific value as we can. So since we can't import the spot colors, we're going to kind of trick it into separating these the correct way. So again, open your Recolor, select everything, then open your Recolor Artwork pattern box, and these you want to change each to 100% C, M, Y, or K. If you have more than 4 colors, I'm not sure what we're going to have to do there, but to get it, you may have to do some extra Photoshop editing to get that to separate out correctly. Maybe make it 50% magenta and then have it search for that when you get into Photoshop or somewhere along those lines. We'll have to kind of cross that bridge when we come to it. But for right now, we've only got 4 colors, so we should be good to go. You can do this 2 ways. You can either click on the box and go into your CMYK and just make it 100%. Click OK. Or I've actually got a palette saved that's CMYK as spot colors. So I can just click on these and quickly change them over to, let's see, we'll do C, to their values. And K. All right, so we should, I think it changed that. Yep, okay. Then click OK, and I know you now got this very strange looking garment. The box is actually pink. You know, since the box isn't super important, I'm going to actually go back in here and swap these two so that our C, M, and Y are on the things that are important, because Photoshop does a really good job of pulling those out, and they're very contrasty. And then that way the box that's less important, it'll still be there, but I just want to make sure that everything transfers over correctly. So now we've got this bizarre looking document, and this is what we're going to save, and we're going to just save it, whatever you need to save it as so that you can remember where and what it is. I'm going to call this Conquer and CMYK, just so I know what it is. Click Save. Yes, I know there is some transparency here, but it really doesn't matter. If you want at this point, you can turn off the linked file and then, you know, resave it. You don't really need that anymore now that you've got everything in the right spot. So I'm just going to do that real quick. We'll make sure to save it out. And okay, so now that that's saved, the next thing we're going to want to do is open up our Photoshop window. And we're going to open that file. And we're going to open that. Okay, so then the import PDF window pops up. The biggest things we want to make sure we select here are the trim box. Make sure that it's cropping to that, because if not, it'll crop down to the artwork and it'll leave off some of our white space, which we don't really want, because we want to make sure it is that same size as our original template image. So we want to make sure, again, same size as the template image, so 2048 by 2048. 8-bit color is fine. CMYK color is what we want it on. Resolution is fine because we're going to shrink it down into a PNG file anyway, PNG. So click OK. All right, so now we've got this in Photoshop, and it looks pretty much the same. So if we look at our channels window, you can actually see now it's separated these out into their individual colors. So you can actually unclick. There's our black box, and there's our yellow artwork, and there's our magenta artwork, and there's our cyan artwork. So it's broken those down into individual components, and that's exactly what we want. So from this channels window, you want to click the little menu on the side here, and you want to use the split channels. What that does is it takes all of these channels here and it breaks them up into separate files. So when you press that, you actually get 5 files across the top. One is going to be the transparency, and actually it's a mask. We don't really need it for anything for these purposes, so we can just delete that. Here is our black box, which is perfect. This is the yellow layer, this is the magenta layer, and this is the cyan layer. So really what we want to do from here is to do 2 things to finish up these files. They have to be a transparent background, and they also have to be a certain shade of gray, which is actually RGB 128, 128, 128. So in order to get them there, we have 2 options. The first, like I said, is underneath the YouTube video here. There should be a link to this action file, which will do both of those things for you. But I'm going to first show you how to do it without using the action, in case you just need to know. And then secondly, I will run it with the action, and we'll save these files out. So we'll start with this one, the cyan file. And we're going to go back to our layers panel. And what you want to do is you want to add a solid color layer. So you can go down here to add adjustments, solid color. We want that to be perfectly black, so 000 RGB is fine. And click OK. So now we've got a completely black layer, and we've got our background underneath. What we actually want to do is we want to select all of our background. So if you hit Control A and then Control C, and we want to go up here into the color fill, and this box right here on the layers panel is actually a mask layer. So we want to Option, or I believe in Windows it's Alt, click that, and you'll get a bright new shiny white box, and you're going to paste that background right in the same spot. So I think that's Shift Command V or Shift Control V, I believe, on Windows maybe. And so we get our image put into that mask, but we need to flip it, and so we want to invert it. We can go to Image, Adjustments, and Invert, or you can just hit Command or Control I, and that's going to flip that. So to get it out of this, we're going to go back to our black box on that layer, and we're also going to hide the background layer. So now you can see that we've got a completely transparent background. It's taken all the white out of it. We didn't have to select anything or make any kind of pixel adjustments, which is great. So I know that all the white is completely gone. The next thing we need to do is recolor this, and we're going to kind of trick it into making it all one color. So right now, when we did the channels, split channels, it actually makes them into grayscale documents, which is perfect because we needed to go from a CMYK to a grayscale, and then we're going to change it back into this thing called duotone, which just basically recolors all the artwork to one color. So we want to open this up, and I've already got a gray in here. If you double click the color box here, it's going to bring up this window, and you can type in 128, 128, 128 in your RGB. Click OK, click OK again, and you can see it. All of our black has been turned to gray. It gradiates down to a transparent color, and this is exactly what we need in order to layer it together to use for LiquidPixel. So from here, you want to go to Export, Export As, and save this out somewhere where you can remember it. I've had this happen a few times. If this does happen to you, I've been using the quick export as PNG. I don't know if it's something with my computer or the way that this is set up right now, but either one will work as long as the end result is the right size. And you can check that in Windows after it saves. Hopefully that will be quickly here. Let's see. All right. I love when it hides my artwork. Okay, well, I'll have to track that file down here and make sure that that's actually the right color. But let me show you how the action file works here. So um, to install the action, all you have to do is download it and go here to load actions and then navigate to wherever you have it saved and then click OK, and it's actually going to put it in its own nice little folder with the OMNI Sublimation in your actions window. But basically from this point, all you have to do is select it and click play, and it has already made it transparent and colored it the right color of gray. So we should be good to go to save these out. I may get the same error message again here. Hopefully I won't. Good, this time it didn't. So 2048, 2048, 100%. PNG with the transparency, and we just want to make sure we do that. Sometimes I'll put an underscore and a number just to keep them separate so that they don't save over each other. And I'm going to click export. Let's do that here. And then we just want to do that with each of the other files so that we get all of the pieces. And that so they're all present and they can be composited together. And I'm like I said before, I'm not really sure exactly what this box does. I'm not sure if they use it for logo or image placement, but I just want to make sure that it's the same as their original template, and so that included it. So I'm going to make sure to include it in mine, just so I don't mess anything else up until we actually get a good handle on what it's doing. All right, let me try and save this out one more time. Hopefully it will work this time. Yeah, it does not like this file for some odd reason. So make sure it's on my desktop, and we're going to call this 4. Okay, sometimes it has like problems, so I'm actually going to save that out separately and come right back here. I got that final one to save correctly, and now I'm going to show you how you can actually go through and test them here. I've opened up the web browser to the Liquify Orb, and I'm actually inside the Art OC Sub Designs. This will be the final resting place for these files once we want to actually publish them. But in the meantime, I actually have set up a little test directory here where we can throw things just to kind of see if they work. Because we want to make sure that everything gets composited correctly and it actually looks like it's supposed to. So if you go to the art folder, there's actually a XCS test folder that's in here. And there's a bunch of various things because, like I said, I've been using this as like a testing folder. But we can, you can add folders if you need to, whatever you need, and then delete it when you're done. That's fine. Or you can save things in here, but I wouldn't always make sure you keep a backup copy because this is always in fluctuation. So what I'm going to do is I've got a couple other test images that I was using to test here, but I've got my 4 images right here, the PNG files, and I'm going to actually drag those and upload them to LiquidPixel, so they're on the server. Okay, and they should appear here, hopefully. Yes, there they are. Okay, so and I believe they are these 4 images here. So we want to remember those file names because when we get into the Explorer files, those are what we're going to use to actually display the images. All right, so click on the Tools Explorer, and I can copy and paste this into the underneath the YouTube link just so you have it, or save it as a text file. Basically what this does is it takes each image, and it makes a color layer. It takes the image that you've just created and it puts the color on the layer, and then it takes all 4 of those images and it pushes them together. Now it does it in order, so we want to make sure we go from, you're kind of thinking like you're making like a pizza. You need the crust, then sauce, then cheese, then the toppings. So they have to be layered in order to make sure that all this works. So the first thing we're going to want to do is just change the source URL to match what we just uploaded. Now I know they're in the XCS test folder. I know they're in the CONQ folder. I know that we named them something different, so I'm going to change that name to CMYK and _1. So I know that's the first image I want to use. I'm going to copy that. Second image I want to use, we're going to try 2. The third image I want to use, obviously 3. And to do that last image, I want to make sure to grab everything from here to here. Wait, nope, sorry, from here to here. And I'm going to add a 4th color. I'm going to change that to 4, _4. And I'm also going to change all of these names here to 4. Just so we have them all there. And then one final thing, I'm going to add it. Add the 4th layer right here. Okay, basically all I did is just copy the code to add the 3rd color down, and then changed everything to a 4th. So hopefully this should work. Basically, it's going to just make a blank color, grab your image that you just created, and layer them on top of them, colorizing them, and then save it as this C1T file. And then when it gets done, it's going to do that for each image, and then when it gets down here, it's going to take C1T and put C2T over top, and C3T over top of that, and C4T over top of that. So let's click the render button. Hopefully this works. And I think it did. Yes. Okay, so you can see this looks a little strange, a little bit different than the way we had it before, and that's because of the colors we put in here, actually. So I'm going to change. Let's do the first color as red, just so we can see the differences here. We'll do the second color as blue. And this is going to look very strange, but it at least will get us the idea. We'll leave the 3rd color as yellow and change that 4th color to green. And then we'll re-render that. These are basically just test images, just to see kind of where all the colors are laying. And it looks like they're actually laying correctly. Yeah, so everything is in its spot, just like it was on our original image. The color 1 is laid out here, color 2, etc. This is also a good place where you can kind of take a look and see if something is supposed to be underneath something else, or if the artwork is incorrectly ordered. You would notice that here, and you can go down here in your code and play around, make 2-3 or 3-2 or 1-3, etc. to get them in the right order. And then that way you know what you need to do to go back through and rename your files, because the program that's already written for LiquidPixel is going to use them in sequence, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you want to make sure that the bottom image is 1, the top image is 4. Kind of thing, and in sequence. It's just going to go through each number. So this is a good place where you can kind of test that. But everything looks great. Everything looks to be exactly where it's supposed to be. And I believe that should do it then. These 4 images here would actually get saved when we're actually ready to publish them. And maybe we just want to hang on to them for right now. They would actually get saved in that OC sub folder in the designs, with the appropriate naming convention, the style, the pattern, and then the sequence. So I hope this has helped. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or send me a message on Slack, and hopefully this helps. See you guys later. Thanks.